Hi there everybody, it's Linnea here for icrafter, and today I'm going to be showing you how to assemble the recipe mini album die set and creating a quick little recipe album. The recipe mini album die set has 14 pieces, and it's going to let you build a full little album, and then there's lots of other little coordinating pieces like a little cake, a cheese grater, a pie, and a little doily shape too, that will allow you to accent your album. I'm going to start with this large die. This is the main piece for the album. This is going to make your cover, both front and back, as well as your pages. I'm going to make my album out of craft cardstock, and I'm going to tape this die in place. This die is fairly large, and I only have a standard size die cutting machine, and it doesn't come with extended plates, so I'm going to tape this in place just to make sure that this die doesn't move, because I'm going to need to use a little bit of a shifting technique. I'm going to need to cut this once and then shift it and cut it again to make sure the full die cuts, because it'll hang off the edges of my platform. Now to do my die cutting, I am using the icrafter translucent cutting deck in the aqua color, as well as the iMend self-mending magnetic pro deck. So even though I'm using the magnetic pro deck, I need to pick up my die, like you just saw me do there, and shift it down so that I can cut this whole piece, because it is so long. So that's the only reason I'm using tape for this piece. For the rest of the video, you'll see me utilizing the magnetic feature of this new Pro deck and not using any tape. I'm going to carefully peel off this big die, and you're going to see how fun this shape is. I went ahead and cut 5 pieces so that I could have a front and a back and then a bunch of pages as well. I cut some of these hole reinforcers, and I cut enough so that I could do both the front and the back of every page. Not only does this reinforce the holes and make them a bit stronger, it also adds a little bit of a decorative touch, and I didn't want to have it on just the front. I wanted it to be on the back too, which was good because in the end I ended up making my album double-sided, so I'm going to have a little recipe pocket on each side of the page, and you'll see what I mean in a minute here. Alright, so also included in the recipe mini album die set, there's this rectangle die, and I'm going to cut that from some white cardstock, and I will end up cutting a total of 8 pieces, I believe. And then there's also this kind of oblong shaped die, and this is going to form a little pocket. This is an optional step. You don't have to do this, but I really thought this was a cute detail. So I added this little pocket onto every one of my pages. You can see here how that rectangle is going to perfectly sit right in the middle of your album. And here's how you do this pocket. It is super easy. There are score lines, so I am just using my iPress burnisher, and I'm going to fold up the long side and then both short edges. And there's a couple different ways that you could add this to your page. You can go ahead and just adhere those flaps directly onto your recipe mini album page. But what I thought would be cute, and to make sure that everything kind of fit in there perfectly and there were no hard edges, I'm going to add some double-sided adhesive, and I'm going to nestle my layering piece here, that white rectangle. I'm going to nestle that right inside of the pocket, remove my adhesive, and press those pieces on. And again, I'm using my iPress burnisher to do this to make sure that these are really good and stuck together. And now I have this adorable little pocket. Let me show you one more time how I did this. And again, I did put this little pocket on every single one of these pages, so I did this a bunch of times, and it was easy and pretty quick too. You just fold up and score along all of those score lines, and then I'm using double-sided adhesive on the inside fold of those crease lines. You can use liquid adhesive or whatever you want. And then I'm going to remove the backer from that double-sided adhesive and tuck that little die cut rectangle piece in here and fold up the long side and the side flaps of that little pocket around the rectangle, and that's going to form the perfect little pocket to put a recipe card into. If you don't want to do this, if you want to add other little embellishments instead of a recipe card, you absolutely can. But I love how this looks. So here's where I created my own little recipe cards. I cut some pattern paper that are the same patterns as what I used for the pockets. I cut to be slightly smaller than the rectangle in that recipe mini album die set. And then, just to make sure everything coordinated well, that recipe mini album had the corners of the rectangle rounded. So I'm going to use a tool that I have not used in a long time, and I'm going to grab my corner rounder, and I'm going to use the 1/4 inch rounder side and round the edges of both the pattern paper, and then I also cut a white mat so that I can write a recipe on that, and it would be a cute little recipe card. In the recipe mini album die set, there is a die that says recipes with an S on the end. And although I'm going to be using that as a full word on the front of my mini album, I just wanted it to say recipe so that I could put this little die at the top of each one of these little recipe cards and write a different recipe onto each one of these cards. All I did was grab my scissors and cut off the S, and then I just kind of rounded that corner on the end of the E a little bit just so that it looked cohesive with the rest of the die. Don't forget the little heart tittle on the eye. It's an adorable little touch. I just love this, that all of the sentiments in here have little hearts for the eyes. I'm again using my iPress burnisher just to make sure that I have everything straight, and once I have it straight, I'm going to use that to press that sentiment onto that recipe card. In that die set, there's this little, I think it's just a little doily. In my grandma's kitchen, she always had little doilies to decorate, and so I thought that this was a cute little touch. I added just a little bit of adhesive to the center so that the sides and edges would kind of pop up off the album, and I stuck that onto the corner of each of these little pockets. Now I'm going through and I'm going to add a little recipe card into each of these pockets, and I'm varying the patterns. I don't want to have the same pattern in the same pocket. You definitely could, but I wanted to vary the pattern and just kind of give a little bit more brightness and happiness to this. And you can see how much space is in this mini album. So I cut the 5 pages, and that will give me 8 slots for my mini album. Now let's work on the front. That might seem a little bit backwards that I did the front or the inside before the front, but I wasn't sure on the design for the front, so I left that for last. I went ahead and die cut the favorite recipes from that die set, and then there are, remember all those little pieces in the beginning? There was the cheese grater, there was a pie and a cake, there's a little salt pepper grinder. I cut 2 of the cheese graters and then 2 little timers, and for the timers I used a little piece of pattern paper as well, but I kept the front of this pretty plain with a pop of color to match the inside as well, because the inside is white and craft with just a pop of color. I'm going to tie off and make the binding of this with just a piece of white ribbon as well as a piece of twine, again keeping with that same color scheme. And here is my finished album. I hope you love it as much as I do, and as I flip through and just show you the cuteness that's on every page, I want to invite you to check out the icrafter YouTube channel for even more tutorials using the recipe mini album die set and more of the fabulous dies from icrafter, as well as you can visit the icrafter website for more inspiration there. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. You can come back to the icrafter YouTube channel and catch more tutorials, and I will see you then. Bye!